Let's do something a little more complicated. Let's do, like, this was an image they threw up for the kind of slide for the course. This is kind of the final image, and then this was the image when I saw it, you know. So my friend's office and the balloons were looking so sad, but the colors were neat. And so how do we get there? And again, we're going to go through our workflow. And what we're going to do with our workflow is ask ourselves, well, what we really want is exposure and contrast. Most raw files need that. And want to get some of the background stuff out. So I'm going to look to do a little more shape with clarity. And then I'm going to leave it there for a moment and think about the crop. I have distracting elements all over the place, so I want to get rid of those. And I'm going to crop those in. And what the crop should feel like, not just look like, but feel like, is it should eventually feel pretty natural. I'm not too worried about the issues that I'm having around the image, but I'm trying to think, is this going in a good spot? And I would say, yeah, pretty close. Adjustment brush is next, because that's the tool we're on, right? K key gives me my adjustment brush. And I'm going to go to my pull-down menu and hit exposure. Then I'm going to drop my exposure way down. I'm going to turn auto mask on for a moment, because I'm going to be getting near the edge of the balloons. And this is similar to what we did with a photograph in black and white, the guy Rodney Smith. What I'm going to have to do is turn auto mask off at one point, right down here. Much better to not have to go over here to do that, so I press A. I need a smaller brush. I press left bracket, and then I have that. If I want a new adjustment, someone help me out in the audience. If I want to do a new adjustment with the same settings, K once to exit, K again to get back in, and then I'm hitting it. The reason why that's nice is this one I might need to hammer even more, because I really need to get out the highlights and the shadows and all that's in there, because that area was brighter in the image. So again, I'm trying to get to speed here. You seen that? Speed, working through that image. Now, what about these guys? KK again. So I hit that again. I'm like, well, I want some color in these balloons, and I need auto mask. Rather than clicking, I hit A on there. And I'm just going to say, well, this one, let's bring it up a little more so we can see it. My flow is a little low. I'm going to hit 7 for 70%. I just want to bring up this little balloon that was lost in the background there. Because I have auto mask turned on, I'm paying attention to the crosshairs in the middle of that, and that's giving me the ability to make an adjustment in that area. So we now have that balloon, which was kind of lost back there, coming back into play. Add a little contrast. Doesn't have to be over the top. I want to do another balloon. You get the gist, right? You press K and then K again. And then once we have that, we can get into our yellow balloon over here, because I want to sort of have multiple balloons there. We could do other things with this too. K, K again. This time just exposure. I'm just going to bring an exposure value in. Make sure I have really a lot of feathers, smaller brush. And we could do something like kind of add dimension, sort of bring in highlights. That's too high with my flow, 3 for 30%. Bring in little highlights onto these guys, right? Because that's what balloons have, kind of bring out that shape of them and how highlights tend to show us that. And this is more when you get into drawing, right? And you're kind of trying to create contours and what, but this is a great tool to do things like that. All right, question.
Is there a way to preview the mask that you're drawing? Like, say you went off of one of the balloons by accident.
Yeah, I should pay you $5 for that question. That's such a good question. So let me go to this one right here. So the easiest way, because you know I'm a shortcut guy, is the O key for overlay. Shift O, what's that going to do is change the type of overlay. So, because sometimes if it's, well, like this one here, it's just dark, you know, or it's gray or something, you can't quite see it. The colors sometimes are good, but if it's on a red background, maybe you need it to be green. So the O key and then Shift O gives you the access to show your overlay, which is such a good question, because a lot of times, especially if you're working fast, which a lot of times we do when we get excited, that can just save you, because you're like, oh my gosh, I totally didn't see what I was ruining in the image in that way. All right, and then the H key, last but not least, hides those overlays so we can actually evaluate it. Then we want to go backslash and say, okay, well, here's the before and here's the after. And with the before and after, we always want to ask ourselves, is the image better? What happens so often, I've said this before with my students, that they would show me their before and after, so excited, they're new to Photoshop, and the after was worse. And I would say, well, what went wrong? And I would say, do you see that it's worse? And they would say, yeah, but it took me this amount of time. You know, I'm like, that doesn't matter, you know. And so we're trying to ask ourselves, or walk away and come back to the desk. All right, let's do a little neighbor check-in, which is neighbor, what's one thing you've picked up so far? Or if it's not anything from what I've done, what's one thing you want to do with your own images. And why I'm saying that is one of the things you may want to do is go back and revisit images you've abandoned. I initially abandoned that picture of the island because I was so disappointed. I mean, my experience was ultimate thrilling. The image wasn't there, but fortunately, you know, for some reason I went back to it. So that may be something. 20 seconds, go for it. Anything that you've picked up or anything that you want to do as a result of what you've seen so far?
Chris, can I ask you something while
Yeah,
you're
of
doing
course,
that?
yeah.
Can you tell us again what that quote was that you said about the reason that photography matters so much is that it's painful? Is that
We said the reason why photography is so painful is because it matters so much. Yes. Because, you know, we were talking about the, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many things.
I like that.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yes.
I'm also I'm trying to come up with what my food connection is
Okay.
to the thread in my photography. I want to hear what your guys is out there in the chat rooms. How would you describe the thread to your photography with food?
Yes.
I like that one.
Yes, that's a fun question, yeah.